we have so much contemporary romance to catch up on. Today's video is going to be epic, and we just need to get to it, so let's jump right in. So when I saw the title, The Virgin Romance Novelist, I knew I had to read this book. This is by Megan Quinn, and the premise is that the main character is trying to write a romance novel, but having never had sex before, it's really a struggle to write the sex scenes, so her friends decide to find her a guy to help her lose her virginity. One of those friends realizes he may want to be the one who helps with that. I love this premise. I've read other variations of it in my time, but I just don't seem to get tired of it, and this one was cutely done. My only complaint was that the ending lacked a bit of finesse, but otherwise I approve. His Millionaire Maid by Colleen Kwan, my friend and fellow booktuber Amanda Eagle, found this book for me as she's helping me on my quest for the most ridiculous titles ever, and we've been noticing a pattern of tons of millionaires and also slightly less but also very popular, the I'm a maid to the millionaire plotlines. But this flips the whole thing on its head. He's not the millionaire, the maid is. Twist! And for a book with such an epic twist, this was remarkably boring. If you're going to have that brilliant of a title and aren't going to make the book scintillatingly good and interesting, at least make it so over the top that you match the melodrama of that title. Do anything but bore me. So I started a new to me series by KRISTAN Higgins called The Blue Heron series. Book 1 is The Best Man. I've read other KRISTAN Higgins books before and have vacillated between like and dislike, but this one, I loved this book. Faith left her hometown because she was jilted at the altar. When she returns years later, she is still not prepared to forgive the best man who helped ruin her wedding all those years back. And this was pretty dang good, if I do say so myself. Then I went on to book 2, The Perfect Match. This is about a British professor who needs a green card, and Honor Holland, who needs a relationship to make her ex, who just got engaged to her ex-best friend, jealous. I like this one a bit less than book 1, but it was still a good book with a good mix of real-world grit and a pretty adorable little love story. And still on my Blue Heron kick, I read Waiting on You, which is book 3, and is about bartender Colleen and her first love who broke her heart and then comes back into town 10 years later. I like this better than book 2. It was a little less uncomfortable, but I did think the gymnastics that KRISTAN Higgins had to perform to justify what happened 10 years before was a little on the unbelievable side. Are you tired of Blue Heron yet? Well, too bad, because I am not. Book 4, In Your Dreams. In this one, it's the classic I need a date to my ex's wedding, but it becomes more. Okay, so not the most original premise, but I did like this one. The only issue that I had is that it stretched the conflict out with beautiful angst, and then wrapped the whole thing up in a rather anticlimactic page, which didn't balance out the earlier taffy pull of tension. And then I finished up the entire series with Anything for You, which was published only earlier this year. This one is about Connor and Jessica, who have been in a secret relationship for years upon years, but he wants to make it unsecret and much more official, and she's got too many issues for that. And as you know, I really like this series. The love stories are a little messy and imperfect and not ideal, and I kind of like that. Everything isn't tied up in a perfect little bow, and this was no exception. There was definitely uncomfortable moments in this book, but they made the story better. I am really starting to love KRISTAN Higgins. So as you can tell, I ran out of Blue Heron books, so I continued on to a standalone KRISTAN Higgins book, my one and only. I know, what a unique, memorable name. That said, it's about a divorce attorney who's run into her ex-husband at her sister's wedding. I found this one cute, but the ending was a tad bit weak. Pretty good premise though, so. And then I tried another one of her books, this time Until There Was You. Seriously, she needs some titling help. These titles are the worst. And by the worst, I mean the most boring. Because you know, I love truly horrendous, ridiculous titles. The worst sin in my book is blasé, generic, meaningless, non-descriptive detritus like this title. Anyway, Posey Osterhagen was this short, straight as a bored teenager who had a huge crush on the bad boy who worked at her family's German restaurant. But the bad boy fell in love with the super hot, popular good girl who also happened to be really, really nice. Now, many years later, he's back in town after his wife's death with his teenage daughter in tow. Posey is now a short, straight as a bored adult who still looks like a kid. And oh, the character of Posey. She's unique and she's interesting, and a person I would like to know in real life. While I thought the ending could have used a little longer, more thoughtful denouement, I was so enthralled with the character of Posey that I thoroughly loved this book. Run the Risk Love Undercover Book 1 by Lori Foster. I like Lori Foster's Men Who Walk the Edge of Honor series, so I thought I'd try a new series by her. This is the classic man goes undercover and then falls in love with the woman, but he's been lying to her the whole time. She will hate him forever when she finds out. This was just sorta not good, not horribly bad, but not good. Nothing bright or shiny or new or interesting about this one. But then I tried book 2, Bear It All, which is about honestly who knows. It was so boring and slow and dragged, and with way too much, here little lady, let me take care of that for you. Never leave the house cause you might possibly stub a toe. In the meantime, I'm gonna go do as many dangerous things as I want. I just could not. Carnal Secrets by Nadia Lee. I would like to note that the title of the version I actually checked out from the library was Taken by Her Unforgiving Billionaire Boss, which is a much better terrible book title and the entire reason I read this book in the first place. This has all the marks of an over-the-top melodramatic Harlequin-style novel, unjust accusations, and office romance, which, true to form in the first part of this book, is uncomfortably into the territory of inadvisable sexual harassment. A brief period, almost laughably brief though, of him thinking she'd moved and he'd never be able to find her. Check, check, and check. So in summary for what it is, it wasn't a bad version of it. I found it fairly entertaining. It did slake my need for hilarious melodrama. Alright, Remember Me by Laura Moore. This is Western contemporary romance about a model who has to return home to her family's ranch when her father dies, and the horse trainer she once loved. I actually liked the horsey setting. I think the author did it justice, and I actually liked the character of Margot, but, and this is not very spoilery as it happens in the very beginning, the impetus for the start of romantic contact wasn't really believable. It was just like, okay, we'll have them kiss for no reason at all, which felt counter to the personalities of both characters. So it felt shoehorned in there to move the relationship where the romance needed it to be. That kind of pulled me out of the story and I just never quite got back in. I started a new series, Virgin River by ROBYN CARR. The first bit was a bit eye-rolly because it was playing up how awful and dangerous the big city of Los Angeles was, and as I live here, I was like, we don't live in constant terror. I feel just as safe here as I did back in Idaho. In fact, I believe the per capita crime rate is actually pretty similar. Anyway, moving on. Once we got past the pearl clutching, it was not bad. A natal nurse practitioner moves to this little town in the middle of nowhere to escape her past in Los Angeles. Her adventures include the owner of the bar across the street from the clinic, a newborn baby dumped on the doorstep, and a drug runner who needs her help. I found out that I actually ended up enjoying myself on this one. Jill Shalvis released her latest book in the Cedar Ridge series in March. I'm always excited for another Jill Shalvis book. In this one, the prodigal son Jacob returns to the fold and meets recently divorced Sophie Marin, whose only worldly possession after the divorce is her husband's boat, which she's living on even though it makes her desperately seasick. The whole revenge through miserably living on a boat was pretty funny, but otherwise I found her character a little blah. Jacob was fun though, so overall this didn't derail the series, but it could have been slightly more elevated. When I'm on a plane, I like to read the fluffiest crap I can find, so on my most recent trip, I thought I would try the This Man series by Jodi Ellen Malpas. I read all 3 books. Yeah, you know how there's this whole genre that counts on generating that tension edge where, okay, this relationship is unhealthy, but even so you kind of secretly find it sexy, even though you really shouldn't? This series was not that. This was the category of, this relationship is so unhealthy, it doesn't look remotely fun or sexy. It's just kind of depressing and makes me feel really sorry for them. Any book series you've read that you know was supposed to generate a certain feeling or mood, but really didn't work for you? And tell me your thoughts on these books, and tell me what I should be reading next.